Hey guys, hello and welcome to the new episode of Codement. So in last episode we have seen all the basics of NgRx. How the components are connected with the actions and reducers, and then how we can store the data inside the store of the NgRx. And so basically store is a centralized place. So now in this episode basically we are going to see how we can implement it practically. There is a counter example. So that's a very basic example, which is also mentioned on the website of the NGRX. So we are going to implement it, and so instead of just copy pasting it, so we'll start to build it. So let's start it. So first thing first is our application. So this is my current application, and in this application, so I have created counter component. So basically, it's a counter component. And first I have just created counteraction.ps file. So this is the place where our all the uh, actions will be mentioned. So first I'll just create a normal function, and that is increment. So I'm just exporting it, and so the name is increment of this function, and I'm just creating as create action. So once you add the create action, so it will import all the details, respective imports, and the create action function will get appeared, like you'll be able to call it. So the main thing is the first parameter of this create action is the string, and I'll just mention it as counter and then increment. And the second parameter would be props. So this props will be also from the NGRX store. So as you can see, it has imported it, and so it's like a function, and you have to mention the data type as well. But in our case, it's an increment, so we don't need to give any specific property or parameter to this increment function. So I'll just skip it. So similarly, with as like increment, I have to also mention another function, and that is decrement. And I'll just mention the string as decrement. So this string can be anything. So you can instead of counter, you can write XYZ or ABC, anything as per your convenience. So it should just be identified by the user. So that's the only purpose. So third function is reset, and I'll just mention the type as reset. So basically, yeah. So these are the three functions. These are the three actions basically. So these three actions we are going to uh, do on the counter. So basically, our actions are now complete. After that, we move to the reducer part. So I've just created another file, that is counter reducer. So reducer is basically a function, normal function. So I'll just name it as this is what normal function is. That is counter reducer. Okay, and so this has to be of type create reducer. So I'll just make it as create reducer, and it will import it respective imports. And so this creating a reducer, so if you just hover over this, so it expects two parameters, and those are like first is initial state. So that initial state, so first basically we have to define our initial state, means the state, or I mean the data. State is nothing but the data. So in our case, I'm just defining it. Initial state equals to, let's say my counter, initial value of the counter is 0. So that is initial state. And if I increment it, so it will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 increment, it will get incremented, and respectively decrement. And if I want to reset it, so it will be at the zero value. So this is state can be anything, like state is a simple data. So in our case, it's a counter, so it's a number type. So that's why I just set the default value as zero. And after that, so create reducer expects another second parameter, and that is the state. And now here, my actually here we have a switch case. So that was as per the previous syntax, but now the switch case is being replaced with on on operator. So on operator belongs to NgRx store again. So on operator basically expects two types, like two parameters. First would be the type, and that would be of what kind of action, so whether it's an increment or decrement or reset. So I'm just expecting increment first. So as you can see, if I when I just typed increment, so it just added the import from the counter action. So this is the same thing. So here I'm coming back to reducer, and then let's say if it is of type increment, so what should be action? So what should be the value of the state? So definitely it would increment the state, right? So yeah, so basically reducer takes two parameters. First is state, and second is type. So it's kind of this is what initial state, and the second is type. Yeah. So once it gets two parameters, so it returns the modified state. It do not return the current state, but it returns the modified state. So I'll just briefly explain you about it. So this is what my previous state, and state plus one is my modified state. Cool. So this is a normal arrow function. So instead of this, I can do like this. And if I just add the returns statement here, I'll just remove the round braces. Cool. So it is returning state plus one. Since the value of state is zero, for the increment, it will return state plus one. Cool. So this is my first condition. Similarly, I have another function, and that is of type decrement. So similarly, I'll just add one more function, that is decrement, and I'll just mention the type. So as you can see here, this is the type of the action, and for decrement, it should return the minus value, minus one value. Cool. And the third one is I also have reset. So I'll add one more condition, one more switch case, kind of. So I'll just name it as reset. So as you can see, when I type reset, the import is added, and for return type, the return value for reset is zero. Cool. So now my reducer is complete. So just I'll make sure that it is exportable. So this is exportable, and this is also exportable. Add the export so that I can use it in other file. So now my this is what my state is, and these are my actions, and this is my reducer. So reducer is having also three respective actions, like reducer is like a function. So whatever the action you define, so if there are three actions, so every action should do something. So what exactly that action is doing is mapped with this reducer tool, and that is mapped using the type. So this is what initial state, and this is what type. Cool. After that, we'll go to the component level. So in my component, basically I have this increment counter is defined. Okay, I'll just remove everything and let's start explain. from the way basic. Cool. So this is what my basic counter is, and so I'm using async as pipe. So async is kind of observable. So basically, observable is when you keep on getting the values over period of time, like whenever there is some kind of change. Means if someone uploads a video on YouTube, so you get the notification. So it's like you do not get the notification if someone uploads like if someone is not uploading anything, so you will not get the notification unless and until someone uploads it. After that only you'll get the modified data, so that modified update. So let's say if you just refer to any stock market API, so the values are changing for every second for every stock price. So this is what, whenever the value is changed, you will get the notification. So it's very similar. So observable is something like if the value is getting changed. Let's say the temperature is there. So the temperature varies for every hour or every half an hour, right? In 24 hours, you can see there are different temperature ranges, right? So whenever there is a change is detected, so you will get the notification that the temperature is changed. So you can experience the different temperature in the morning and different in the evening. So it's same like whenever there is a kind of change in the data source, so that change, if you are if you have subscribed to it, so you will receive the update. So it's the same kind of analogies here. So here, so basically this is what a counter component, and so I've just made this variable count and then dollar sign, so that this refers to the observable. So it means that this variable will get the updated value after a certain amount of time, after a certain amount of period, right? So yeah, so after that, this is what a store. So I've just made an instance of a store. Store is what, as per the diagram, like this is the central store, and this is common to all the components. But to access this from my component, I have to make an instance inside this constructor. So it's what store, and then I have to define what is the value, what is the name of that variable, because store can have multiple values or multiple variables, multiple values. Like application state is the one thing, like every application has a state. So that application state can have multiple values. It can be a profile picture, it can be person name, it can be address of the person, it can be count, it can be contact number, email. So these can be different values, different variables present. Or out of those variables, which variable we want to access. So that variable is here, is the name of count. Like in future, this store will have multiple other variable names as well, right? So this is what the difference is. So this is what I have to mention, and the name of my variable is count, and I'm giving the data type as any, or I can just make it as a number. Cool. And if I just want to access it, so this is what select is the name of the method, and this has to be called on the store. So this is what shorthand notation. So out of all the states, I want to get the value of count. So whenever there is any kind of change in the value, so I'll get the updated value. Cool. So this is what a stateless approach. So, so this is how we can access the value of count from the store, and this is the count variable, and this will get triggered when only it gets triggered whenever I'm using the async pipe. This is what a single pipe, and if I just mention it as async, so in that case only it gets triggered. and that is how it works. After that, this is what increment counter, decrement counter, reset. So these are the three buttons I've used, and I have to mention those functions here. Cool. So here I'll mention the functions, and that is increment counter. And so this is what increment counter is in a local function. So this function should call something, and this function should call the reducer function. So for that purpose, we have to use store dot dispatch, and inside dispatch I have this increment method. So this is how I call it. So let's see if it works. On the HTML there is some kind of error. Okay, so these are the two functions which are not defined, so I'll just comment it out for the time being. And here on the reducer, what is the issue? Line number 6. This is what counter reducer, and for constant counter reducer, counter reducer is declared here. Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. So the name is changed. Okay. Uh, yeah, so now also there is one more important thing, and which is in the app module, basically we have to map this core module, and so we have to just map it as counter reducer. Where is the counter reducer? Here it is. Okay, cool. And in the app module, basically I have inside the app module, basically I have to mention it store module and then for root, and this is what the name of the variable, and this is the reducer respect to that particular variable. So inside counter, basically this is the same name which I'm trying to access. So as you can see here, this is my increment. Cool. So I'm accessing it and I'm able to increment it. So that's beautiful. And after that, I'll mention the similar kind of other functions as well. So that will be like first is decrement counter, and and just call the decrement from the reducer. So as you can see here, if you hover it and if you press control and hover it, so you'll get mapped here from the actions. Cool. And from the actions, this is what decrement is, and this is what the written value of it. Cool. And now I have to just mention the third one at the component level, and that is reset. So whenever I click on the reset button, so this function will get called, and internally it will call the reset one. Cool. So I'm just decrementing it, reset. Right. So this is how we can use this NgRx pattern in our application. So now the beauty is instead of using any uh, normal property binding, or instead of using any common service, we are using it through the NgRx pattern. And similarly, if I want to again use the same thing in different component, let's say this is my counter component, and as you can see, here are different components, and if I just want to use the same value at the header level, so I'll just move to the header component. I think that's a navbar. This is what my navbar is, and inside navbar I'll just copy the same thing. Yeah, So it's the same thing here, which is copied from there, and I'll just try to uh, bind the count variable here. I think it's there somewhere at the low level. I just printed count with async 5. Yes, async. Oh, oh, oh. Where is the pipe symbol? Okay, I'll not waste some time. I'll just copy from the. I'll just copy this, and that was which one app or. Okay, so as you can see here, where is my counter? It's here. So it's a different component altogether, and that's an I bar. So I'll just mention the name as counter here as well. So as you can see here, it is. So I am just changing from one component, and the data is reflected at two places. That is in the main component, that is in the counter component and in the header as well. So the same can be added in the footer as well, or in the different component as well. Yeah. So this is the beauty of NgRx. So you make changes from one component, and that will be reflected at multiple places. So it's very similar when you change your profile picture on Facebook or on Instagram. That is from the your profile settings, and once you change that, so that will be reflected at the different component level, like on the main timeline as well as on the other wherever you see your profile picture at all the places. So that's what mm, this is what NGRX, and it is very efficient when you use it. So in the next episode, we'll see uh, how we can uh, pass the data in the objects or in the array form. So this was in the primitive data type, that was to a normal number value. So in the next episode, we'll see in the object format or array format. All right, guys, if you find it useful, so please consider giving a subscribe or like button. Please press the like button. Cool. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next episode very soon. Stay tuned, keep learning, keep watching. Thank you.